Hey, so throwing this together because Joystick Gremlin is not the most intuitive of software to get up and running, and I've helped a number of friends set this up. And making this video is great because I don't have to sit down and spend the time to do it as much if I have a video that explains it, and this lets people kind of go back to it at their own speed. Um, but let's keep this quick and direct. So, Joystick Gremlin, as wonderful and versatile as it is, and as the most recommended software interpolation like that there is for physical button presses and controls and axes, it's not intuitive. So to get Joystick Gremlin to work, not only do you need Joystick Gremlin, but you need to install several support softwares. Uh, First and foremost being vJoy. vJoy is the foundation that Joystick Gremlin is built on. It is also just what it sounds like, a virtual joystick, if you will, or virtual controller. This is a controller with customizable axis buttons, in that you specify how many axes, how many buttons you want in the controller. Also, if you want force feedback, um, and vibration and haptic feedback pass through as well. I don't use any of these, and seriously, in Star Citizen or many games, it's unnecessary. But that said, vJoy. Um, there's another bit of software that you need to get this to work properly, and that is HidHide. Again, HidHide is exactly what it sounds like. It is a bit of software that hides the HID or hardware identifier of any physical device that you do not want your software to see. So if you have a joystick that you have remapped with Joystick Gremlin, you want that game or bit of software to only see the vJoy device that is now being driven by your physical device. Because if you have the physical device visible to your software and hit a button, that software will see both button presses, and it'll be very difficult for you to, just specify, yes, this virtual button, not the physical one, even though you're seeing them both at the same time. So, HidHide. Now, once you've installed vJoy and HidHide, then you can install Joystick Gremlin, and then you're good to go for programming. So, that being said, we will go over where to get all of this software. We'll start with Joystick Gremlin. You can see here, whitemagic.github.io, Joystick Gremlin. Lovely in that they point out what they are and also have links to other software that does more or less the same thing. Just kind of nice that they're confident enough that they're better than all of these, that they can link all of these or allow you to pick them if you so desire. We're going to ignore all of them though. For quick and dirty, go to download. You have two options here. You have an MSI, which is an installer that installs it, and you also have a zip file, which just has portable software, if you will. You just throw the files in a folder, run them, and it works great. Just make a shortcut for easy access. This is what I usually go with. So click, download, and done. The other is vJoy. So we will be using this version because it is the latest version out. There's a few different versions you can get. This one works great, and it works with modern OSs. So go ahead, download that. That's done. vJoy is actually, a virtual joystick. So it installs a virtual joystick. Will most likely require a restart and then some setup, but we'll get to that. And then finally, HidHide. Here we go. HidHide. You want to go here to releases and download right here under assets. And there you go. Downloaded. All right. And close that now. And you can see here is all the software we need. I have not installed this on this particular computer, so we can kind of go through it in actuality. So, vJoy. Yep. Next. Yep. Next. install. Good to go. All right, hit hide next. Sure, that's fine. Agree. You can put this where you will, but this is fine. Install. Yep. Yep. No, we'll do that later. And then finally, Joystick Gremlin. We're just going to extract all. Perfect. Extract. And Joystick Gremlin. There we go. This guy right here. All right. Going to do that restart, and then we'll come right back. Okay. Since we installed everything, I got rid of all the installers we had here. We have Joystick Gremlin right here, HidHide right here. vJoy likes to hide, but if you dig, you'll find it. What we're looking for is configure vJoy right here. You'll also be able to find it under all, under vJoy right here. So configure vJoy. All right, we're going to make a few controllers here. Things to note. The reason why I'm making multiples is if you have a modern controller for Star Citizen, like VKB, say SCG, Space Combat Grip, like that alone has, depending on what it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 axes by itself, which means if you have 2 of them for twin sticks, you will have 12, which is more than Windows can handle. Doesn't matter so much for Star Citizen, but I like to keep things kind of within, I don't know, what Windows can see in case I'm using other software. I don't have to make a bunch of different setups. But all that said, here we are. You want each one of these to be different. So number of buttons, 8. That is no. Maximum Windows can see is 32. So we'll do 32. And then continuous POVs. Windows sees 2 of them, so we'll do 2 of them. We want all the axes. As you can see here, 8 is what Windows sees. That's great. This is force feedback effects. Doesn't matter, but add it. Whatever. It doesn't hurt anything if it's there. And then we're going to hit apply. You might have heard that device because a device was just created virtually. There you go. That's one. And now we're going to do a second one. Now, like I said, Star Citizen can recognize more than your standard 32. Just give that a second. Okay, now that it's created, we can edit it. Since we are using this for Star Citizen in this instance, thanks to the request of fellow Redditor who wanted this, we'll do 64. You can also do 128. You know what? We'll do 128. That's fine. Main thing being each of these has to have something different. It can be 1 less axis, 1 more button, whatever. It's all good, but we're going to do 2 hats here as well. Better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it, and have issues later on. So you hear that device being removed and then recreated. And then give it a sec. Bam, there you go. Great. So now if you go to Windows controllers, so game controllers right here, you'll see 2 VKB devices, Gladiator, Space Gunfighter, and 2 vJoy devices, and then also an Xbox controller. I have this connected for extra demonstration once we get into it. But that's pretty much all we need. We'll hit OK for now. Next is HidHide. Since you don't want physical controllers to be seen, we're going to fix that here. So HidHide applications. This is great. This allows applications to see the physical devices that are of your choice. So example would be like VKB's software. So let's see here. VKB and then device config right here. Okay. Open. Okay, so you see VKB device config. Great. We'll get back to that later. And then here we have all the devices. For the devices you want hidden, just check them. So all the physical devices, we're going to leave the virtual devices visible. And then finally, check this box, enable device hiding. Great. Now, if we go to USB game controllers, all you see are the vJoy devices. And this goes for any bit of software except that VKB software. So let's just quickly go. And we're going to run that software. And you can see it can actually see the VKB controllers in this software. And that's because we effectively whitelisted it. You do that for any bit of software you want. So for me, for example, I play some DCS. DCS doesn't really need this as much as, say, Star Citizen does. And you can program controllers in a very different way in DCS. You basically just point or click the controller you want and then select what you want controlled by it. So due to that, I don't use any vJoy or HidHide or anything for that personally. You can also have multiple controllers do the same thing, again, negating the need for what I'm using this for. All right. So close that. We don't really, well, we'll just toss this on another screen. I'm not recording for now. And we're good to go to Joystick Gremlin. So here, actually, let's do this. New shortcut, browse, desktop, Joystick Gremlin, Joystick Gremlin. Okay. Next, finish. There we go. Okay. Now that we have that all set up, let's open up Joystick Gremlin. Just give it a second or two. There we go. Now, there's something we forgot to do here, intentionally, but just to make a point. I can see my vJoy devices, but I can't see my physical devices. And you may guess why. We did not add vJoy to the whitelist, which we need to do for vJoy to see the physical controllers, which it has to do to be able to map them to the virtual ones. So let's go ahead and add that now. Desktop, Joystick Gremlin. There we go. And as easy as that, it's now visible. Isn't that great? You can also, if you're interested, just check this box and everything will automatically be visible again. You can also manually click and unclick devices here. I would say that if you have an Xbox controller and you want to use it in Star Citizen, just leave it unchecked and visible. And then use vJoy for all of your HOTAS, throttles, whatnot. Again, I'm just kind of using this to highlight some other things on this setup where I don't have a throttle. All right. The gunfighter is my primary stick. So I am going to, wow, let me shut up Discord. Hold on, please. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to try one-to-one mapping. This does not always work. It hardly works, but we'll give it a try. Look at that. It did. Beautiful. You can only really do this once with that one controller, but it does save you a whole bunch of time. Interesting. Oh, I see. Well, vJoy device 1 is the one with 100 buttons. That's annoying. See, part of the problems of doing this way. Uh, Simple enough to fix, although I guess that's why you need me to make this video. I'm going to edit this, but just remove all of these. This is one of the reasons why I like to manually bind buttons. You typically don't need 128 buttons, but it's handy to have. Oh, here's the thing. So remap, add. This is good. Hat. So device 1, hat 1, great. No, remember, we have 2 hats. Not that we're going to use them here, but we do have it if you want to have a second hat bound. Can be handy later. And I'll show you. Well, we might come around to why, but again, better to have it not need it, as I said before. All right, thanks to the magic of editing, we've removed all of those. Okay. So, you may ask why we wanted 128 buttons here. And also why we picked 128, that just because it's a nice rounded computer number. You can pick any number of buttons you want, but having more so you have them if you need them is always good. But you could have a shift button that when you hold it, button 1 on your stick, instead of just activating button 1 on the virtual controller, can activate button 122, greatly expanding what you can do with limited buttons on a stick. But right now we're just going to finish setting up. So now we have the left stick, right? So in this case, we're going to remap, but instead of vJoy device 1, we'll do vJoy device 2, just to make it a little bit easier. And then go through this process. Now, because we're doing device 2, we have to manually do the second one. vJoy, if you do an auto one-to-one, will just default to device 1, and you can't tell it what else to do. So that's why we're doing it this way. I'll edit this and come back when this is done. Okay, last one. 13. Once you're done with all of these, I wholeheartedly recommend that you just check them a little bit. So 2, 6, make sure they're all device 2, or whatever device it is you decide to assign it to. And yeah, we look good. Now, you may have remembered me saying Windows only recognizes controllers with 32 buttons. This is true. If you are playing a game that uses Windows, like I think XID or whatever system it is they use for their controllers, they'll only see those 32 buttons. I do believe Elite Dangerous recently updated their game so they can see more than that. But Elite was a bit of a pain. Joystick Gremlin is a great way to work around that. You could say create a third vJoy device that's say only buttons with no access, and add 32 more buttons, and then add another 32 buttons on another device. And so you could have vJoy devices 2, 3, and 4. So, like for example, my left stick here has 41 buttons. So that means anything beyond 32 here, so 33, 34, blah, 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 all of these would be unusable in some situations. But if we were to say, just for example, so like 33, right? We can do vJoy device 1, and then we can do like button 1 or 2 or whatever we want. That'll be a workaround. So like If I had a third device, I would go 3 and then start with 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever it is you decide. In this case, since we're playing Star Citizen, that doesn't matter. So let me set that back. Very important, file, save, and we'll just call this one Star Citizen. Okay. And then anytime you make a change, just go save, bam, saved, good to go. Another thing that you're going to want to do is take this, copy it, and then save it somewhere else and back it up on a disk or another computer, because you may have noticed how tedious this can be. You don't want to do it again. If you back these up, you won't have to. So, handy. Anyways. Okay. Everything's programmed. File is saved. We're good to go. Now, here are USB devices. However, even though we're moving our controllers, nothing is happening. That's okay. That's because you need to first activate the profile. So to do that, we click here. That should get her started. Now, if we start moving things around, we will actually see it show up. There we go. So that's the trigger. It's activating the vJoy device. Forward and back on the stick, left and right on the stick, twist, mini stick, Z-axis. Now, you know, slider and dial don't do anything here. Well, that's because they're not bound to anything. Those are just basically 2 free controls that we can use or bind to what we will. Honestly, if we had wanted to and didn't want to use the analog stick on our right stick, we could change that, right? So that there's just one vJoy device that has all of the access. So let's do that. And I'll show you one of the beautiful things about vJoy. All right, so we're going to go here. Gunfighter. That is our vJoy device 1, right? So disconnect this for a second. X rotation, Y rotation is the thumbstick on a right stick. Okay, so what we want to do is we want slider and dial. So we'll go device 2 and we'll do slider. And device 2 and we'll do dial. Okay. File, save, activate. Now, all of those, including that, all right, that's all vJoy device 2. And our first stick is now activating the axis on vJoy device 2. And the lovely thing is we didn't have to change this controller. We just repointed what we want to this. You can do that a number of different ways. You could actually do that by setting a hotkey. When you hit, say, a pinky stick, will convert an axis from one stick to another. Like, the world's your oyster with this software. I'm not going to get into all of that just now, just because that's a lot. I'll make another video for that if there's interest. But yeah, there are some things I do want to point out here, though. So let's go back to the Gladiator here. All right. We have our thumbstick, X and Y rotation. Okay. As you may know, thumbsticks are not quite as fine for control as, say, a joystick. A joystick has a much further range of motion, so it's easier to move it a little bit than, say, this thumbstick, right? You move your thumb a bit and bam, like, your movement in the game kind of moves further than you want to or more aggressively. we can set curves. So over here, we're going to go to response curve. We're going to click add. All right, so that is now going to bind to this axis. Here's the curve. And there's a couple things you want to do. I like to do cubic Bezier spline. I like to do diagonal symmetry and force smoother curves. Okay, let's expand this a little bit so we can see more. There we go. So now you can pull out your curve. It is mirrored, so it is equal on either side. If you don't force diagonal symmetry, then you can have this one be this way and what have you, but we don't want that. So, there we go. Let's say that. Great. You can also set dead zones here if you are so inclined, right? So dead zones, inner, outer. And let's do save. Whoops. Save, activate. And now that axis has a curve and a dead zone. And I would do that with both of these, right? So response curve, add diagonal curves. There we go. In this particular case, I'd say you'd want them to be the same. So let's do that. Oh, and one annoying thing is you need to click those every time you do them. So it's out there. Yeah, good enough. No, not really. There we go. I like precision. Okay, cool. Save. I like to uncheck and recheck, and that makes sure that those changes are applied. And there you go. That's setting up Joystick Gremlin. Hope that's good enough for you. If you want more, we can get into Star Citizen show. Oh, wait. No. There's something more I want to show you. And this is one of my favorite aspects. There's two things here, actually. So, for people who play space games, who have a full set of flight pedals, right? So you have your rudder axis and you have your twin toe brakes. I myself use all of those axes, and I use my toe brakes as forward and back thrust. I use for me, on my personal setup, I have twin sticks, both vertical. I do not use twist at all. You can get away with using twists on your left stick, but even then, just twisting makes it a little bit trickier to hit the buttons. So I like them locked down, and I use my pedals to make up for the loss of those two axes. My toe brakes are my forward and back thrust. Now, in Star Citizen, and I believe even in Elite, forward and back thrust, like, yes, there's forward thrust, yes, there's back thrust, and yes, you can bind those. However, those don't bind to analog axis. So you can't have a singular analog axis do forward thrust in an incremental fashion. If you bind anything to forward thrust, it's on or off, just like hitting a key on the keyboard. And if you're going so far into control setup to get this to do this, you're going to want like featherable, controllable analog axis bound to it. So Joystick Gremlin helps us out there as well. In this case, we're going to use the Xbox controller to demonstrate. We're going to use the triggers. The triggers are two separate axes, I believe. So we will go to Tools, and we're going to, let's see, no, Actions, sorry. We're going to go to Actions, Merge Axis, New Axis. Okay. Xbox controller, Xbox controller. You know what? let's do this. I'm going to close this guy here. Go to HidHide. I'm going to go to devices. Going to uncheck that. Look at that. Instantly shows up. Isn't that wonderful? All right. Good. They are two separate axes. That's Z and Z rotation. Those are the triggers. Okay. So Z rotation. Okay. We set up our Xbox controller. We have our one-to-one mapping, or rather our merged axis right here. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now we have Z rotation on our left stick. Device 2, Z rotation, right? And if we go to look at actions and merge axis, it's device 2, Z rotation. Great. Activate. Leave this guy. Nope. It's this guy. That is one thing I don't like about the vJoy devices is I don't believe you can name them, so it's kind of hard to tell them apart. It is what it is. All right. Here's me with my twist axis on my left stick, moving Z rotation. If I take my Xbox controller, I can also move the same axis by pulling the triggers. One trigger brings it down, the other brings it up, but it all works the same axis. And if you pull them both at the same time, they cancel each other out. So in my use case, this is bound to forward and back thrust, which is separate from forward thrust and separate from back thrust, and also separate and different than throttle. Remember, forward thrust and back thrust are meant to be bound to keys or switches, so it's all on or all off. And even if you bind it to an axis, you don't get the analog functionality out of it, which is why you need or would want to bind an analog control like the toe brakes to forward and back thrust, because then you get the full analog range and usability. And that's huge when dogfighting or just even maneuvering within a hangar, and having it on the toe brakes kind of frees your hands up for other things. It's wonderful. The other thing that I pointed out here is combining one physical axis on one device, rather two separate physical axes on two separate devices to a singular virtual axis. I use this for up and down strafe and left and right strafe. My left stick has that, so forward and back is up and down, left and right is side to side. And on my throttle, I have an analog mini stick, and that has those same two axes. So if my hand's on my throttle, I can still strafe up, down, left, right. And then if my hand's on the stick, I have that too. And this is where you do want to be careful, though. If you have like a stick that doesn't have Hall effect sensors, that uses pots that jitters ever so slightly, or maybe the dead zone isn't set quite correctly, any input will override any other controller. So if your little mini stick is wiggling or moving or moved, like, then your joystick won't work. Or if you have like 0 dead zone on your joystick, like, it'll always have some input, even if it's minimal, and that'll make the mini stick not work. So you want to make sure you set those dead zones right, and that you don't have a jittery input taking over. That can cause issue. But once you have all that sorted, having the same binds on two separate controls is phenomenal. So you can switch back and forth. Same for buttons and keys, hats, all of that. I have them mirrored on my stick, my left stick, and my left throttle, so I can go back and forth and not lose any functionality at all. Like, all my power settings are there, all of it. So yeah, that's this tutorial. If there's interest, I may do more. Let me know, and good luck to you. Take care.